Oklahoma. Key facts. Abbreviation OK. Nickname the Sioux State. Capital Oklahoma City. Flower Oklahoma rose. Tree eastern redbud. Bird scissor-tail flycatcher. Waltz Oklahoma wind. Motto Labor Omnia Vincit. Where conquers all. Only New Mexico and Arizona of the 48 connected or contiguous states were admitted to the Union after Oklahoma. Gore Vidal's grandfather, the blind Thomas Pryor Gore, was a founding senator when it finally achieved statehood in 1907. Before that time, it had been a territory for the displaced American Indians who had been booted out of their ancestral lands in the southern states. The enforced journey is known in Indian lore as the Trail of Tears. As agriculture real estate became more valuable in the latter part of the 19th century, however, the tribes were rejected yet again when white settlers came over for the famous land run. A first come first served scramble for farmland. Those who broke the rules and grabbed their land before the official time were known as Sooners, which gave the state its nickname. Out went the Indians, in came the homesteaders, and statehood for Oklahoma, which means with the cruel irony land of the red man. Nature exacted a harsh revenge on those white homesteaders in the early 1930s when drought, high winds, and poor agronomy came together to curse the land and create the notorious Dust Bowl. Thousands and thousands of poor farmers upped sticks and headed for California. John Steinbeck's character Tom Jurd in The Grapes of Wrath came to stand for this kind of downtrodden Okie. Henry Fonda in the John Ford film adaptation of the novel made famous a speech of Jurd's, which has since become a kind of fanfare for the common man. I'll be all around in the dark, I'll be everywhere, wherever you can look, wherever there is a fight, so hungry people can eat. I'll be there. Wherever there is a cop beating up a guy, I'll be there. I'll be in the way guys yell when they are mad. I'll be in the way kids laugh when they are hungry and they know supper's ready. And when the people are eaten, they starve, they race, and live in the house they build. I'll be there too. It's no coincidence that around the time of the Dust Bowl, Lynn Riggs wrote the play Green Grew the Lilacs. It looks back to a time when the Oklahoma Territory just before statehood in 1906 seemed like a kind of agricultural paradise. In 1943, Rodgers and Hammerstein turned the play into the hit Broadway musical Oklahoma. Coming only 3 years after the John Ford film, Oklahoma must have felt like the most examined state in the Union around its time. But it wasn't all dust bowl, depression, and doom for the Okie. Oil made Tulsa one of the richest cities in the country from the 1920s onwards, and today the state is amongst the most prosperous in America. Salvation. Which is not to say that there are no poor. I'm in a Salvation Army hole in downtown Oklahoma City this afternoon. Every week they feed the homeless with meals cooked up by the cheapest and sweetest natured kitchen staff you could ever hope to meet. Today, which is Good Friday, seems a especially big crowd lining up outside. I talked to Captain Vance Murphy, an officer of the Salvation Army. They really do mimic the military with their ranks and hierarchies. Maroon epaulets on his clean white shirt bespeak his rank as clearly as a silver gorget on a lifeguard. As one who abominates religion and most religious organizations, I have always had a soft spot for the Salvation Army. They are so resolutely unsexy, and so affably unhectoring, so charmingly unconditional in their kindnesses. They just get on with feeding and clothing the poor while expecting nothing in return. The only hint of preaching is confined to a rather helpless but good-natured moment of biblical exegesis, which is delivered by one of the officers as the clients eat. Nobody appears to be paying much heed. A few of the homeless women nod their heads encouragingly enough for the officers to pick up a guitar and sing. A ghastly rendition of Amazing Grace, predictably enough, but a small price to pay for what looks like truly excellent hot food on a cold March day. I speak to Terry, one of the homeless, and to a companion of his whose name I never quite catch. They like this place. They respect the lack of interference and religiosity. Terry's companion finishes his meal and gets up from the table to help the Salvation Army kitchen staff stack chairs. It is his way of saying thank you. A spokesperson for the Salvation Army, old-fashioned as they are, they have succumbed to the 21st century mania for PR people, who is there to facilitate our filming, is a sparky, pretty and amusing young blonde called Heidi. She reveals she is a belly dancer. None of us in the film crew is prepared to let it go at that. We make an appointment to come and film here that evening. But first, one of the great American institutions awaits us. The rodeo. Rodeo. The Central Oklahoma Junior Rodeo Association, COJRA, holds its meetings several times a season in the Tyler Blount Memorial Arena in Guthrie, Oklahoma. It is possible that this is the juiciest slice of American pie that I had yet tasted. The sight of young children wandering around in cowboy hats and boots is endearing enough. But when they start the rodeo itself, it's all I can do not to cry out in joy and wonder. The event is open, and any single boy or girl who has never been married and is 18 years old or younger. There are 5 divisions according to age: 14 to 18, 10 to 13, 7 to 9, 6 and under, and 4 and under. When you have seen a 3-year-old child in a Stetson trying to rope a steer or ride a sheep, you have seen it all. The rodeo begins, and I have been in America now long enough not to be surprised by this, with the national anthem. Hats are doffed and placed over heads as a young man rides around the arena bearing the star-spangled banner. I am much not to my own annoyance deeply and excusably moved, and console myself with the thought that I would be just as emotional stirred with the Bulgarian national anthem being played at an archetypally Bulgarian event. I am of course fooling no one but myself by imagining this. We kick off with gold and decorating on food for 4s and under. How do you undecorate a goat? Well, first, a supervising adult has to decorate one. In other words, they have to attach a ribbon to it. At the sound of the bell, the child then runs up, holds the goat between its legs, detaches the ribbon, and runs back. Quickest time wins. A wealth of comedy is concealed in that simple phrase, holds the goat between its legs. While each child may be clear about the rules of the game, the goat is not, and there is much chasing and fooling over to become through before it will consent to be undecorated. As it is the same goat in each instance, the proceeding becomes more and more fraught each time as the goat grows increasingly impatient at the whole proceeding and begins violently to wish itself elsewhere. For 6 and under, there is an added wrinkle: goat undecorating on horse, which is essentially the same but mounted. This is no trivial addition, for goats and horses do not get on well. It all adds to the broad comedy, however, and by now I am red watery-eyed and wheezy from laughter. Mutton busting, goat tying, and steer riding all follow. Mutton busting isn't quite as alarming as it sounds. The wild horse and the bronco are considered too much for toddlers to cope with even here in laissez-faire, libertarian, devil-may-care cowboy country, and so youngest age categories are given sheep to ride. The longer they can stand without being thrown, the better. They may be dressed in protecting clothing, but for all that, the result are brave little cowboys and cowgirls. The determination and seriousness is marvelous to behold. The sun sets, the moon rises, and the older children show all their skills, which are might greater but so much less appealing. You cannot attend such an event without reflecting on the contingencies of life, birth, and destiny. America had its millions of urban children, ghetto children, born to gangs and drugs and guns and violence and abuse. And it has these children raised in the countryside, born to goat decorating, mutton busting, lassoing, and riding. Two kinds of child will probably never meet in all their lives. Will they ever respect each other, learn about each other, or even consider each other? Probably not. There were children eating in the Salvation Army hall this afternoon who may well never see a horse, unless it is a police horse, in all their lives. Belly. Whether children from either side of the tracks will ever see belly dancing is another question altogether. From Guthrie to a kind of rodeo of human flesh in the shish kebab restaurant, Oklahoma City. Our old friend Heidi is dancing with a girl who is by day a staff sergeant in the United States Air Force. I take a dollar bill into an area that I can look at without blushing and head for bed.